Well, joining me now is former Senator and now partner of law firm Xenaphon Davis, Nick Xenophon, who was a champion for privacy, who had lots of concerns about government intrusion into this space, but is also now, Nick, I think a spokesman or a representative for Huawei itself. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Corey. Not a spokesman for Huawei, but a lawyer for Huawei. Big difference. My job is to represent Huawei because, in my view, Huawei has been one of the most unfairly maligned companies in Australian history. And the issues that you raise are very important. I still share those privacy concerns. Absolutely. I'm concerned. What I'm concerned about is that Huawei has been banned. I think that the process has been unfair, lack of due process, all those things that you should afford a company operating within the law in Australia. But what's extraordinary, and I think your viewers need to be aware of this, is that Telstra, the only 5G provider at the moment through various trial sites, is getting its kit, 5G kit, as well as 4G and 3G for the last decade, from a company, a joint venture arrangement with Ericsson and Panda Electronics. The gear is made in China. Panda Electronics is actually state-owned, and it's, according to the US Department of Defense, it's run by the People's Liberation Army. Now, that's what the US Department of Defense says. We've heard outrage about Huawei. I don't hear anyone talking about the fact that Panda Electronics, that is providing equipment right now for Telstra, this is our national carrier that provides services to ASIO, to the ASD, critical communications infrastructure. There seems to be a double standard here. It seems that Huawei has been a convenient whipping post, yet Telstra, and by the way, Telstra happens to be a corporate sponsor of ASPI, the Australian Security Policy Institute.
Yeah, Nick, if I may just interrupt for a moment, I'm sorry, but if this infrastructure is actually going into some of our security organisations already, you would presume, or I would presume, that it's actually been vetted already to ensure that it is safe for those uses, and yet they've obviously come to a different conclusion about Huawei. Is that a fair assessment, or have I missed something?
I don't think you've missed anything. I think that's not a fair assessment, though. I'll say why. There is a double standard. There is a double standard here because, of course, it was the Australian Strategic Policy Institute I was referring to, ASPI, which has been a trenchant critic of Huawei. I haven't heard them say anything about the fact that Panda Electronics, in its joint venture arrangement with Ericsson, is providing the 5G gear as well as 4G gear for our national carrier, Telstra. Where has the vetting been? I don't think it has been. And what is extraordinary is that Huawei, in this whole process, has said, we want to comply with all Australian law. That's our first priority. That has to be their first priority in any country they operate in, not Chinese law, but Australian law, including Australian security laws. They've offered the source code. They've offered all the material in order to ensure that there are no back doors, there's no front doors, there's no issues there of foreign interference. Yet, when Ericsson and Nokia, who have joint venture arrangements to make 5G equipment in China with state-owned enterprises, they weren't as forthcoming in terms of having their equipment being subject to the same level of scrutiny that Huawei wanted. Huawei was an open book on this, and I think there's a double standard.
Sticking to Huawei just for a moment before we go to perhaps the broader issue of some of the apps. Huawei have had quite a history, though, with some security services around the world. A lot of them have been banned in Five Eyes countries as a concern. There's also been claims of allegations, and I think they've been settled they've taken other intellectual property and various other corporate and industrial disputes in that space. I mean, you can't pretend to us that they're just a benevolent organisation that has no links to the People's Liberation Army, can you?
No, I'm not pretending. I'm just stating the facts, and that's what's been missing here: a facts-based debate, because the facts actually matter here. You have a situation where Huawei is a private company.
But they have been found to be in breach of or security concerns by many other countries, not just Australia. That's a fact, isn't it?
No, it's not a fact. There's been no open process. The fact is the European Union, led by Germany, does not have concerns. It has put Huawei through the paces in terms of an objective approach, and Huawei in the UK until recently got the tick of approval from MI6 from their intelligence services. And the reason why Huawei is now, why the government of the UK is now reconsidering Huawei is that one of the reasons why Huawei got the tick of approval, because the UK intelligence services said, you are using US semiconductors. That really reassures us about the risk of hacking and the like. And guess what? The US is now considering banning Huawei from using US semiconductors, which is what they want to do, which now means that UK intelligence services are saying that could cause problems for us. I mean, it's almost as though they've been snookered by a United States manoeuvre.
Nick, what about then the broader issue of Chinese technology applications? I mean, India's banned 59 of them. You heard that in the introduction. Many people would argue that there's too much data there and it can be misused because of the Chinese National Security Act. Isn't Huawei subject to that same sort of act, and that they could potentially get into everyone's mobile phone? They're the second largest manufacturer of mobile phones in the world, and if they have to respond to China's security concerns, couldn't that be a way of accessing some data?
That isn't the actual facts. The facts are this. There's one law that Huawei in Australia has to comply with, and indeed the other 170 plus countries that they operate in. It's the laws of the nation that they operate in. Huawei, in its 15 years in Australia, has been an exemplary corporate citizen. There is no suggestion, let alone any evidence, that they've done the wrong thing. Their priority is to comply with Australian security laws. Now, what they have to do in China is a separate thing. In the same way that apps such as Facebook and Google have to comply with American law where they operate, or Australian laws. So that is a great myth. And my concern is that we've had a debate that hasn't been based on the facts. It's been based on a number of myths. And I find it extraordinary that the fact is you have a situation where Telstra, our national carrier in effect, that deals with very sensitive communications, is getting its 5G and 4G equipment from a company that, according to the US Department of Defense, is not only state-owned, but under the control of the People's Liberation Army. I haven't heard the Australian Strategic Policy Institute complain about that, and I would have thought they would have taken an interest in that, given that Telstra is one of their corporate sponsors. Where is the scrutiny of that? Where there is a double standard here. Huawei is a convenient whipping post.
Nick Xenophon, I want to say thank you for joining us. You've lost none of the power of your advocacy. It's great to have you on the show, and I hope it won't be too long before you get to join us again. Thanks very much.
I'll wear a tie next time.
Well, before I go to the panel, there is one person that absolutely agrees with Nick Xenophon's assessment of Huawei and injustice, and that's the Chinese ambassador to Australia. I think we've got a quick grab of what he's had to say about it.
Firstly, I think the decision made by the Australian government, as I see it, is basically politically motivated. It is a discrimination against the Chinese company. At the same time, it doesn't serve the best interests of Australian companies and consumers. And it has become a sour point or thorny issue in the bilateral relations, as it damages mutual trust between the two sides.
Nick Xenophon and the Chinese ambassador have a point. Have we been discriminating unnecessarily against an exemplary Chinese company called Huawei?